Welcome to David and David on Real Estate. Join us as we explore the ins and outs of the real estate market.
Good morning and welcome to the David and David on Real Estate podcast. Today is a very special episode. We have Evan Salinas from Loco with us. A little bit different than some of the other guests we had at the podcast, but very excited for today's episode. Evan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks you guys. This is very different for me, man. So I'm excited to hear what's up and what I can learn.
Well, we always learn something. This is our 89th episode that we're recording, and we're basically, doing the podcast. It's sort of real estate based because we're both in the real estate business, with David being an owner broker of a real estate firm, and I'm a real estate lawyer. But part of our commitment when we started doing this podcast was to talk about our life as small business owners.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one place where we love to meet entrepreneurs and people that are, like you, and you've got quite a story that we want to get into and hear all about you. So welcome, Evan. It's great having you on.
Yeah, it's good to be on. Honestly, like it's any type of exposure, honestly, is the best for entrepreneurs, right? As a small businessman, like it's that networking that's key, right? Especially like you don't want to exclude yourself from different types of demographics too. So that's always like, that's one thing I actually learned about business, just getting into it fresh, you got to open the doors.
I love that. Listen, we're going to get into all that stuff and peel back layers and really go into it. But tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you start? How did your name come up? I'm really curious. We want to hear the full story.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of, let's compact this. I started tattooing when I was probably like maybe 14, 15. In Mexico. Tell you the truth, I was really good at art, really good at numbers. I was let's say I was good at school. I just didn't do anything with it. So I was a guy that would like maybe not show up to the class, but like on the test day, I'd be like, bang, get the test done. Maybe get out there with like an 80, 85%. So I think one of the biggest skills, especially with tattooing and how I started, like I think one of the best things I personally think I can do is just learn fast, right? Things like that, how I started, just, it's pretty much coming back to Toronto, establishing clientele, going to the gym, talking to people that, are really health conscious. A lot of people that, take care of themselves, want to look good, want tattoos. So I can kind of just, lock into those clients, right?
So how old were you when you came to Canada?
I was born in Toronto, but we came back and forth. Like, my dad owned a restaurant there. He had a house. So we were back and forth constantly, right? It's just, I think growing up in that culture, like in Mexico, like it kind of exposed me to like the art form and, like just I feel like people over there know their neighbors. You know what I mean? Here, it's like, I barely know my neighbor. So like, I think like that social, like networking and the way that you can relate to people is like, it's a little stronger there. So I kind of use that here, which was a little awkward. Technically you don't really know your neighbors, you just like, hey, hi, how you doing? How's the weather?
It's surface.
That's pretty much it. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's how it starts.
Wow, that's awesome. And listen, one thing, because I did a little bit of research, but one thing that stood out to me is that you never really apprenticed or you never really learned from somebody, which, from what I gather in your industry, a lot of the artists, apprentice and learn from somebody. It's not something that you can kind of pick up and just start doing, right? But that really stood out in my mind.
To tell you the truth, man, I think like it's just that skill I can learn fast. Like, right, like even with anything that I've done, right, like even health wise, even like I'm not tapped into real estate like you guys, but like, you know what I mean? I'm on the process. I've already have a couple of properties. I'm just learning quick, right? And I think that's the best way to approach anything. With the apprentices and stuff, yeah, I didn't really have an apprenticeship. Like I saw it, I mimicked it, I repeated successful habits, and then that's pretty much it, right? Now in terms of like now as we speak right now, like for a person that never had an apprenticeship, I do have a lot of apprentices, right? And just to speak in a general term, like one of my shop has some of the most amount of employees there, right? A tattoo shop, they come and go, people, it's a very fluid business where you get different people coming in. But for me, I retained a lot of my artists, right? We're now like 16 strong. And I think the fact that I didn't have a proper apprenticeship, I can tell them with like open arms. I'm like, hey, you know what? Try this, right? It's all about, let's say, the more you fail, the closer you are to getting it. So that's my approach in that.
Yeah, and I think that speaks very highly. I mean, I think, having people that stay with you for a long time, and David Corman, I mean, I think you can attest to this too in your business when you have, clerks and lawyers, and you have the longevity. I think that really impacts your reputation positively with everybody in the marketplace. And I think it speaks very highly of you as a business owner, because you have to take care of your people for them to stay.
Yeah.
If you don't take care of your people, they're not going to stay with you.
No, yeah, for sure. That's a big thing. Like, you're spending a majority of your life with these people that you're working with. You know what I mean? I feel like it's very important for you guys to have a relationship. Like, I don't, give or take, you guys know to say like the customer is always right, essentially. I don't know how I feel about that. I see like if I treat my employees right, they'll treat my customers right, which then, you know what I mean? It is like, it's all a learning process. But I do agree that like, having the right people there and then treating it almost like a family base, like I think it's super important, like you're spending 8, 9, 10 hours a day with them. You gotta like them, you know what I mean? At a certain point, right? There can't be that weird tension, right? And then I think that's what brings the longevity, right? Just being kind of like I guess a boss, like having that boss mentality, but also being able to like, let's say adapt.
Or
You know?
take care of your people.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Evan, you're the guy that sets the tone, you set the culture in the shop. And I guess what's a little unique about your business, your industry is a little different from mine and David's is,
Mhm.
you refer to some of them as employees, and some of them are, but you also refer to them as artists, right?
Mhm.
And artists are artists, like that's different than a real estate agent is different than a law clerk. There's something about artists, just by definition, there's a uniqueness about each one, right? They're going to
Yeah.
have their own talent. They're going to build their own following, I assume, too, right? And
Yeah.
certain customers are drawn to different artists for various reasons and have relationship. So that makes even more difficult as a small business owner to keep everybody in the same corral and make everybody comfortable and happy. And yeah, you could be an artist, but you can do that here. You don't have to open up your own shop or go somewhere else,
Yeah.
but you have to, you create that type of culture. And that's what I try to do with law clerks and lawyers too. We want wherever you think you could be doing real estate law, like do it here, like make it your own, create it your own, right? So I think that's sort of an important message to convey to people.
Yeah. Yeah. Being an artist is it's not that it's crazy difficult, but I believe that the business is like you're 50% an artist and you're 50% business.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, like we're selling ourselves. Like as any sales agent, you sell yourself before you sell the product. Right. Essentially, like
Right.
you're like people were buying homes. That's one of the biggest decisions that people are going to make in their whole lives. Right. Tattoos is something so permanent that people are like, like I don't even want one. That's how like tough the decision is. You know what I mean? Right. It gets to a point. So essentially, like we're salesmen, right? We're just tapping into a different, I guess, part where it's like, we're making them trust them for something, a decision for their whole lives, that like, make sure that no one's going to judge them and, and make sure that they pick the right design or whatever, right? It is, right? But essentially, yes, like you do build your own clientele, you do have your own fan base, right? With my brand, Loco Inc., I've already had this for 10, 12 years. So it's a very solid brand that people can branch off of it. And like I said, like I've had artists that like want to make their own shops and I help them. I'm like, hey, you know what? Make your own shop. I'm going to help you do this, this, and that. And at the end of the day, it just actually looks good on the whole, like Loco Inc. brand itself, right? For us to develop artists and give them their own like stable that they can build and they can do. It just, like it reciprocates the good energy, reciprocates the good I guess reputation. Right.
I love that. I mean, you know what, you touched on a lot of points there. I think, number one, leaders create other leaders, right? So having that abundance mindset where you're helping people, I love that, because I think that's exactly how David Corman and I approached our business over the years. Is, we want to build people up, right? And if you do that, and you don't hold them back and you don't clip their wings, then something really magical happens, right? But I think the other thing you said is that, if before you sell any product, you got to be able to sell yourself. And I think in real estate, that holds true each and every single time. People need to trust you. They need to respect you. They need to, look at you as a beacon of example, right? And if you do that very well, then, those are the characteristics that any successful salesperson really exhibits.
Yeah.
And you nailed the nail on the head. Like, I would never, ever in a million years consider getting a tattoo. But when I look at your work, when I look at your Instagram account, I was just telling David Corman before you came on, I was at a friend's house a couple of nights ago, and I'm like, oh, let me show you who's going to be on my podcast. And we went through your Instagram profile, and this guy is huge into tattoos. And, he had a tattoo of a horse on his arm. And the wife's like, wow, look at that 3D work that, Loco does. It's amazing. And then the guy's like, yeah, I tried to get my tattoo artist to do a 3D rendering, and he said no. Like, he said he wouldn't even do it. And then, like, I looked at his tattoo, and it was really, really single dimensional. Like, it was still beautiful, but there wasn't that depth of perception in there. And I think you really start appreciating the artistry behind it as you kind of look into your work and look at some of the stuff you do. And, I found myself there for a split second saying, you know what, maybe I would consider it, maybe I would consider it. And, I've never, ever in my life found myself thinking like that before. So, I think that speaks very highly as well.
Yeah, like what's crazy, actually, most of the word of mouth is from people that actually don't even have a tattoo by me.
Really?
Most of the merchandise that I sell is people that don't even have a tattoo by me.
They just appreciate the work so much, not so much that they want to take the leap, but they appreciate it so much that.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, we do establish a good following of not just tattooed people, but like essentially, like, when I go out, it's like the people that's never even had a tattoo, that just kind of like really, like, let's say, merges in with the culture, and they're like, yeah, man, you should get a tattoo from Loco. I don't have one, but like, he's sick, and this and that. And it's like, that's where, like, I feel like that's the real salesman really pitches into it, right? Like, that's where it gets deeper than just that one client that you have. It really spreads out, and it's almost like they like the atmosphere, they like the establishment, they like the aura about the whole perception of this shop and the feeling, and like, like that's where networking really, really goes from just one person to like everybody, right? It's almost like a feeling, right? Especially when it comes to something so permanent. But yeah, it's crazy. Like, now tattoos are being it's such let's say, a luxury thing right now, right? Like, you see celebrities, you see artists, if they're all tattooed, It's like I would say it's like tattoos are like buying a permanent Louis Vuitton shirt. You know what I mean? It's just so marketed up there, especially with now high profile clientele. Right now, like, everybody's tattooed. It's almost like it's almost like surpassed that stereotype, right? But now tattooing has gone to a point where it's just strict business, right? It took from something that's like an artistry, which it's still art, right? We do dedicate it, but then we understand like the business part of it. Like, how do we get there? How do we get to this staple? How do we not just do tattoos, but like, how do we invest our money? How do we do this? It's a lifestyle. Like, it's a whole culture, right?
Yeah, and I think you hit on some great points there. There's an artistry to it, but there's also, like, it has to be a real trust factor also, that you're in the right hands. and full disclosure, I'm not tattooed. I've never had interest personally, but I do realize that, like, I'm completely in the minority. right now in culture. And I walk around, like, used to be like, I was the minority. When I grew up, the only people that had tattoos were, people that, sailors had tattoos. They stopped in a port and they got a tattoo. Like that was the generation ahead of me. But I realize I'm completely in the minority. I've got 3 adult children who are all married. So like 6 adult kids in their 30s
Yeah.
who are parents also. And so 3 out of those 6 have tattoos. And the other 3 at some point I'm expecting they're going to get. And the ones that do have more than one. And I know the next one's coming. So from my point of view as a parent, I said, like, if you're going to do it, just make sure you're doing it with the right person, the right place, that's going to look after you, make sure it's healthy, make sure it's interesting, and that you're going to love it. And it's, there's some art to it, right? Because they're
David,
going to do it, might as well do it with a professional.
you're right. So why don't we get some advice from Loco, like for the people that don't have a tattoo, for the people that have been thinking about it for a long time, what advice would you give them?
Into getting their first tattoo?
Yeah.
Most of the people that waited a long time, right, to get a tattoo, they realized it's just another day. It's literally just another day. Like, you'll get the tattoo. Obviously, like, one of the biggest things that people obviously are very scared of is the opinions of others, right?
Mhm.
They're gonna be like, why would you get let's say example, let's say you got a lion. So why would you get a lion? Why would you do this? Why would you do that? You know what I mean? And that's one of the biggest mental blocks I even think in just life itself, the opinions of other people, right? I think if you don't understand how to control that and just kind of like follow in your own decision making, like that's one of the big things that people kind of just almost like pause in their action in anything really. As a first time tattoo purchaser, at a certain point, like in the beginning, people always get tattoos to kind of like break the ice, something religious, something family orientated, something whatever. And like, to each his own. Like, I understand, like, you kind of break the ice, you kind of like, get people warmed up into it. And then once you get one, it's just like, it's highly addictive. You know what I mean? Because what I feel like the tattoo does is, it's either like what I say, it's either it closes a chapter to your life or it begins the next one. Right? Like, I've seen people that got a tattoo that just went hard in the gym and just all of a sudden they come back and they're just ripped and they just feel like a different person. You know what I mean? They feel like they conquered something. It's like almost like it's like one of those biggest things. Like, you climb the rock wall and you got to the top and boom, you just come down. You just feel like you can achieve the next goal, right? So like we do sell tattoos, but we're selling almost like a lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like, you're accomplishing something, right? And like, that's your badge. Like, that's your badge of honor. That's what you got for that. You know what I mean? For that time. Like I said, like, people just collect art, right? At a certain point, you're just collecting. You just love this and you love that and this and that, and you just, right? It's different for everybody, but I understand, like, getting the first tattoo is like, it's like a badge, right? It's like a badge of honor. It's like you're on to the next level, right? Like, it's like
What was your first?
my last name.
Yeah.
My last name, which was on my arm. I was super young. I was probably maybe 16, right? You know what's crazy? Actually, when I was younger, I was really against tattoos. I was like, I was never gonna get one, blah blah blah. I don't want to look like the typical, this and that. And it's crazy. I was always good at art, and it just happened to be that way. It just, like I said, like I could never say like, I'll never do this, I'll never do that, right? Like, there's certain markets that I'm tapping in right now that I wouldn't even think about touching, right? Right. And that's, that it to each his own, Like, I know you guys are not tattooed, but it's it's getting to a point where it's very trendy, very like, in style, that like, it's almost, you're considering it. It's like, the fact that you're even there, it's like, wow, that it's pretty good.
I like the way you answered that question. And I think, I think a lot of people struggle with what the opinion of others is and how others are going to judge them. And I love the fact that, you kind of touched on that and you said that, if you make a decision like this or you go through a decision like this is the ultimate way of telling people that, hey, this is my decision, it's my choice, and what you think, I don't care, because it's my body, my choice, and I'm not going to explain to myself to you like why I got what I got, or why I chose what I chose. But I think that lesson can be really transferred to a lot of things in life and in business.
Mhm.
And I think it's a very powerful one.
Yeah, you know what? It doesn't even come to tattooing. It could just be a simple choice of what car you bought. Why did you spend that much? What kind of house? Why would you need 5 bedrooms? You're 2 people. You know what I
Right.
mean? It gets to a point where it's like, once you pass that level of understanding that, like, you can kind of do whatever you want. You know what I mean? The opinions of others does make a big impact, especially on people that are purchasing, right? It's not just them. You're almost selling to them and everyone else that they're texting, right? Everyone else that they're showing this, like if you guys are like even selling a piece of land or a property or whatever it is, right? They're like, oh, I don't know, you could need a separate entrance, or maybe you need 3-car garage, or maybe you need this, and maybe this area, I heard that this,
Yeah.
and it's the same with us.
When I was 18 years old, I submitted an offer which got accepted on a property in Oakville. And I remember I told my dad about it. And my dad said to me, "Are you crazy? Why would you get a mortgage at 18 years old?"
Mhm.
So, I thought about it, and I was in my 5-day cooling off period, and I canceled the offer,
Oh,
right? And I
well,
waited another 5 years before I bought my first house. And the house prices, of course, went up, I don't know, like 30% in that time period. But, I always said, if I didn't listen to the opinion of my dad at the age of 18, I would have been a little bit further ahead at that point.
yeah, yeah. There's
So,
happens all
there,
the time.
there's a prime example of letting the opinion of others influence you. And I'm so big on listening to your gut and trusting your instinct, because and Loco, I will say, I was telling this to David Corman before you came on, like, I have never met a person who works harder at the gym than you. Watching you work out, and then we work out at the same boxing gym, right? But then I go on your Instagram, and the next day you're at a different gym, and the next day you're at a different gym, right? And then the next Instagram video I see is like you're doing backflips and cartwheels and some crazy other stuff, and I'm like, that's amazing to see from one dedicated professional to another, because you take it to a different level. Your work ethic is insane. You work hard, and I can see it in your business too. 69,000 followers on Instagram. Like, it's just incredible work ethic, and I love seeing that hustle culture.
I do appreciate that, honestly. Like, it's at a certain point, it's not even motivation anymore. It's just strict discipline. You know what I mean? It's to a point where like people always ask me, it's like, what's your biggest fear? I said, for me, it's just living average. You
Hmm.
know, like not tapping to your full potential. Like most of the things that you see going to the gym, backflips, are limitations that I thought I had, or that was given to me from someone else. You know what I mean? So even purchasing, like I purchased a Lamborghini a couple years ago, and it was to a point where like I had to justify my purchase, but I was like, no, it's strictly marketing, right? It's strictly this. Like, why would I purchase this? Like, why are you doing backflips? It's like, it's not that why. It's like, can I? I could. And you break it down, like I said, like my I think one of the biggest skills that I have is just learning things quick, right? Breaking them down in simplest forms, understanding just like the structure, and then just applying. Really simple it is. I think most of the successful people in the world is just they're just based on action, right? It's just taking action, seeing what's going to happen, right? Like understanding fundamentals is crucial, but like taking action, I think, is one of the biggest things you could do, right? So
So
like all that you see. Sorry, go ahead.
So I was just gonna say, like, I just want to peel back the layers a little bit, because I know another person that bought a Lamborghini, and it literally changed his life from a marketing aspect in his business.
Yeah.
So I want to peel back the layers and tap into that. Like, talk about that experience a little bit, because most people think that you buy a car like this for yourself, and I mean that's a big aspect. You absolutely do, right? But when people see you driving a Lamborghini, like break it down for us. Like, what has that done for your business? Because people don't think about it from that point of view, but you're like the second person to have a very similar story. So I just want to hear it from your point of view. What did that do for your business? What did that do for your Instagram? What did that do for your marketing? What did that do for the bottom line of your company dollar?
Okay, so truthfully, a Lamborghini is not like my dream car at all. Mine's like an old school 1969 Hemi Charger, you know what I mean? Big muscle car, something solid, right? Not like a little plastic thing, right? But what it does, honestly, for business, for marketing, it just shows people. Like in this culture, in this generation, like I don't know if you understand, but it's a flex culture. It's like people like are showing off, right? It's like you're topping off your friend, you're topping off that guy. That guy has a $200,000 wedding, you want a $300,000, you want this, right? So essentially, the car is a big marketing strategy, right? It's just like it's showing like almost foundation. Like, this guy knows what he's doing, right? This guy knows what he's doing. You're pulling up to, like, even you're trying to close a deal and you're trying to sell, like, I don't know, a $10 million home. You're pulling up to, like, an average looking car, and then he's like, oh, okay, cool, but he's pulling up in a Rolls Royce, and all of a sudden they're like, they trust you a little bit more. Weird, I don't know why. It just happens. It is what it is, right? Like, even seeing someone's watch, right? For people that know watches, they're like, wow, this guy's wearing an AP, a Rolex, a Patek, and then, you know what I mean? He must know something that I don't know. He must be at a level where it's like, like, I think in the sense of money is like a very big vibration. Like, you have to be at a certain mind frame in order for you to understand it and retain it, and just consistently have it, right? So with the marketing with the Lamborghini, like, it works the same way, right? Like, once you establish that kind of status, like, you can't go down, right? It's an impossible, like, you can't market yourself lower, right? Now it's like you're attracting different clientele, right? The day that I bought the Lamborghini is the day that I met so many other people with Lamborghinis and McLarens, and it's crazy, right? It just opens up that door. Like, I'm there, and I'm like, we're not talking about cars. I'm talking about, hey, what do you do? Like, how do you do this? This is not like the conversations are a lot different, let's just say, right? And then, like that, like you said, like those purchases are tools, right? Marketing tools, right? And that's like one of the biggest things, right? Especially in this generation.
And I guess you probably have some ability to sniff out who's real and who's not real, like who buys the Lamborghini first and has no backup. They can't afford it. They're not there yet, or they bought that watch, to create the image, versus those that have actually earned it and they're established and they're real, right? Like, you can sort of sniff that out a little bit too.
You know what? In this day and age, it's very hard, but one of the things that I think that putting yourself in uncomfortable positions will create growth. So even if he says, like, even if he can't afford it, you know what I mean? And he's just sliding through, and maybe he's just bought the car just to, like, open doors to meet other people in bigger business ventures.
That's respectable enough.
Yeah, I can't knock his hustle. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like
that's the justified reason to do it.
You know what I mean? It could open doors. You don't know. But the thing is, like, it depends on him. He's putting himself in a position where he has to get out there. He has to pay those bills. He has to make those networking, which is fine, right? Everyone plays a part at a certain time. But is there people that do it? Yes. Does it work out for them? Sometimes, maybe not, but it all depends on the person, right?
But it's better than sitting at home and watching Netflix and eating chips. You know what I mean?
It is. It
They're
gets you
doing
going.
something. They're getting out there. They're risking it. They're trying. And I completely agree. You can't disrespect the hustle. You just can't do it because they're trying, right? So I'd
Yeah.
rather talk to a person like that than to a person who calls me and is like, hey, binging Netflix series number 49,688. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. You're 100% right. You're 100% right. You can't knock that. You can't really knock the hustle, but there are people that let's just say like I do music, right? Music is one of even a stronger marketing strategies than the Lamborghini itself, right?
I need to jump into that because I'm like, when I was on your Instagram and I saw that you do rap music videos and stuff, I
Yeah.
was like,
That
that's
is 100%. This is like I'm using that like my ROI is my tattoo shop, right? So my leads that I get off the views from music goes directly filters into the facility, which is the shop, right? Essentially, what is it? It's a massive commercial, right? You're opening yourself the doors of sponsorships and brands and retaining other types of relationship with restaurants and clubs and this and that. Yeah, great. It's all marketing, right? Right? You like I said, like I'm in a point where it's like I'm doing music, I'm doing tattoos, I'm doing like a little bit of real estate here, I'm doing this, like I'm touching every single demographic, right? If I was just consistently on tattooing, there's only a certain percentage of people that actually get tattoos. And like I said before, like most of the people that recommend me or vouch for me are people that have no tattoos themselves. But that comes from the networking. That comes from me going to a restaurant. It's like, hey, how you doing? Blah, 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 this and that, right? He's like, hey, Loco is a cool guy. Like I seen him, he works out, this and that. And that's our relationship, that working out. Or maybe the watch, or maybe the car, right? So essentially, like it's tapping into those diverse networking systems, but not just having that direction of tattoos. Like, like I relate to people that maybe don't have tattoos and have restaurants, we don't know, right?
but realtors should be doing the same thing, right? Like if you're a realtor, wouldn't you want to have access to the marketplace that is driving Lamborghinis? If you're a realtor, wouldn't you want to have access to the marketplace that's wearing an AP watch or a Rolex watch or a Philip Patek watch, right?
Tattooed
If
or
you're a
not.
realtor, wouldn't you want access to business owners and restaurant owners and other professionals that enjoy the hustle and see value in it and work just as hard themselves day in and day out to build whatever they're building? Of course you would, right? So, there's so much symmetry here. And like in my head, I'm like, Loco, like next rap commercial you tape, like why don't we tape it at a $10 million house that's for sale? And if that house sells because of their rap commercial, I'll share some of the commission with you.
You see, it's all about like what I believe, like most of the videos that I do is other business owners, right? They have watches. I had a Richard Mille on the wall on my wrist, and it was from like a jeweler company. And I said, and they reach out to me like, hey, do you want to advertise this? I'm like, it's not my style of watch. You know what I mean? It's not my look. I don't like it. You know what I mean? I'm more of an AP guy.
Love it.
But it's just, you know what it is? It's like, it's me advertising the watch, vice versa, getting his clientele. Like, who's the clientele that buys jewelry? They're big.
They're
You know
big.
what I mean? If they can throw down 100 grand for a watch, what is them to buy a house? What is them to invest in their pre-con? What is invest in the next like project of me? Like, there's so much opportunity. And like for us to be like, let's say horse vision, where it's like this, right? It's impossible. Right now, we don't know, right? Like some of the wealthiest people that I've known, they don't even look. They're walking around normal, like white shirt, this and that. I don't see a watch, and I'm like, what? You got like an old tattoo on the neck from you when you got from your old ex-girlfriend. Like, I don't know who they are, So it's just it gets to a point where it's like I can't put these guys in categories. Right? We're living in a world where digital currency, even crypto guys, we don't even know. It's like you'd be like, hey, like he's kind of a little nerdy. Dude, the guy's sitting on like 250 million. Like, we don't know, right? So like for me, like I said, like we got to tap into a lot of stuff, and the music is a big commercial, right? Yeah, that's pretty much how I use it.
How did you get into it? Like how do you write your own songs? Do you co-write them with somebody else?
I learned quick. Right? I break it down. There's simple, there's some breaking down strategies, right, to music, especially things that are catchy, like hooks, and the way that people perceive imagery, right? Women and bottles and stuff and all this stuff, like it's very attractive, right? All that I need is them to see the sign one time, logoing, boom, right? It's almost like a subliminal message, right? It's like you've seen it so many times that you're so aware of it that it comes to second nature, right? It's like seeing a brand like Coca-Cola. You see a red can, you don't, to a point where it's like you don't even see the brand. You see a red can and you're like, it's Coke.
You flash with the logo and you
Yeah, you don't even have to see the logo. It's Coke. Even if you turn around and it's not Coke, it's President's Choice, but right away, Coke. Right? So that's where I'm trying to go, where it's like you've seen it so many times on TV, that second nature, you hear tattoos and it's right away Loco Inc. Right? So that's where that branding helps. And like I understand a lot of people, I've learned it from people that are branded crazy, right? And I'm just like nitpicking and choosing and just learning quick, right? Especially with the music. Same stuff.
Love it, man.
But you actually have some talent for it. Like it's something that obviously you must enjoy doing it too, right? And you're an artist in other ways, and that's another form of art, and it's another way of expressing yourself. And by the way, you can have fun doing it at the same time you're promoting the hell out of your business, right?
Yeah.
And you're wearing your hat like 24/7, like you're out there, like you're a walking billboard, right? You walk into a room, you're going to have a presence all the time. Oh,
Well,
who's that guy? What's he doing?
That's what I say about the tattoos. When I give someone a good tattoo, I'm like, you're like a walking billboard.
True.
Right? You go out, people are gonna ask you, family members, people are gonna see it. You know, it's like I'm advertising the Coca-Cola right on your arm. Right? It's just such a strong marketing is crazy. Let's just say marketing. I really underestimated when I started the business how important marketing was. Right, especially with like a smaller business. It's another level. It's another. That's why there's marketing teams. you know.
So,
Well, look, you're a great example too. Like a lot of people think the only way to get an education is to go to school and go to university, and go to business school. You want to learn marketing and how to be a business owner. There's another way to have an education too, and you're a great example of that, right? You can have an education just by watching and learning and making. You're not officially an apprentice to someone, but you're making yourself be an apprentice to those that you're exposed to, and you're just you're a sponge, and you just keep learning and adapting, and you see it, right? So there's different ways of getting education. I think and you're a professor already. You're already at that level teaching
I would
others.
like. No, I'm a student. It's crazy because people ask me like, they ask me like, oh, what's my educational background and all that stuff, and I said, you know what? Every day I actually learn something new. I actually started more courses and more classes after high school than ever in that whole elementary high school period. Like I took seminars, like I paid financial advisors like thousands of dollars just for me to break it. Like they're 30 years. I broke it down in 3 days.
so smart, man. Love it.
For me to give them like what, 7 grand, 8 grand, for me to just pick their brain out, give whatever, even for business marketing, even for health professionals. They're like, hey, yeah, I spent 15 years in the health business. Cool. I want you to break this down. I want just 2 days. Give me an hour, whatever you want. Break it down. Give me some charts. Give me whatever. Break it down for me. So that 15 years, I just put it in a day.
Love it.
Right. So that's where I approach education, right? Like, you know what I mean?
You gotta pay for it. Like,
you gotta pay for it. You gotta pay for the experience.
Pay for education, and then I started another company called the Real Estate Investment Institute, and it's amazing because the difference we're making in the industry and what we're teaching, right? We literally teach realtors how to at least 2x their business. And not only that, but we encourage them to become investors themselves. So it completely changes their financial lifestyle, right? But, the obstacle that we're seeing is, you know, that education and that investment piece from the realtor, and they're hesitating. You know, to get the designation is $3,000. That $3,000 you're going to get back in, you know, you do 1/10 of a transaction, that money's coming back to you. But you're
Yeah.
learning a different way of business. Like it's insane. But the fact that, you know, you're so smart when it comes to tapping into other people's perspective and getting them to, hey, listen, sit with me, like you have 30 years of experience. I want you to break this down to something small that I understand I'm going to be able to take and apply into my business, and I'll pay you whatever you want for that knowledge. That is brilliant, 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 brilliant. Good for you. You know, I've always said that if you're the smartest person in the room, old. I've been on this earth for 39 years. What the hell do I know? The earth is thousands of years old. Like, I look at some of the things that are happening in our politics, and I'm like, you know, the same things have happened hundreds and hundreds of times over throughout history.
There's
Why
a-
are we not looking back at history? That's why we have history books, so we don't repeat the same shit before that happened.
There's patterns.
Why do our leaders think that their like little perspective that they have on the world is the only viewpoint out there? It's insane, you know? So I love the fact that, you know, you're a student, the fact that you're investing in yourself, the fact that, you know, you have this approach where you want to learn and absorb from other people. Like it's absolutely brilliant. And I hope more people have the same discipline, the same vision to live their life exactly the same way.
It's you know what it is, it does take a lot of sacrifice. You know what I mean? You got to sacrifice those times where it's like, you know, you pass up those days at the bars and you're at the club and this and all that stuff. Like right now with what's happening around the world, you got to be smart. You got to start really looking at human patterns. You got to start looking at, you can't be a consumer, you got to be a producer in this generation where it's like, you know, everyone's trying to like take, right? Like I said, like honestly, COVID was one of the best things that's ever happened to me, right? And not saying because of what it is, but business wise, it was pretty good, right? And that's because like I figured out that most people are going to be on their phones, on their tablets. So what did I do? Triple X the marketing, right? You're exposed to more. People are at what, 300 times, three times more time on their devices. So let's run up the ads, make sure that people see it, right? That's how we get a big following, right? And start selling products, giving them the itch, right? People are there, like, you know, people were buying things online like crazy, right? But it is a consumer's world, right? And no matter what the world's leaders say and this and that, blah, 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 they understand the same thing. We're consuming, I don't want to say anything, but let's say wrong information, and people are very easily manipulated, so they conform to certain things. And then once you put product there, people are taking, right? I think it's very important to understand human psychology, understand how patterns tend to repeat themselves, right? You know, like you got to understand, like I have clients that come in, constantly ask questions, never buy, right? I have other clients that don't even look at the price. They want the time, right? They value their time. Like what's next? What's the what's our profit margins? How am I looking at it? You know, you got to look at patterns, right? And that's where I believe where learning quick is it's a very tricky thing, right? You know, especially in what's happening in this world, and we can go out.
I completely.
You have to be open to all these concepts and to these changes. You have to be looking for opportunities. You know, the fact you use COVID, say, hey, everybody's at home. This is an opportunity for social media, right? This is everybody. There were some that were on it before. Whoever was on it is going to use it way more. And there's a whole bunch that were never on it, and they're forced to figure it out if they want to stay in touch with the world, right? So you figured that out pretty fast, and you know, and you know, that's a great credit to you. So what I've learned in the last couple of minutes from listening to the two of you is that I'm definitely on the right podcast, because I never want to be the smartest guy in the podcast either. I'm sure I'm certainly number 3 in this podcast. So this is very educational for me.
The two uneducated guys going up against a lawyer.
Yeah, but maybe I'm doing it wrong. You gotta be on the, there's different, like I said, there's different ways to get an education. You know, I did it the conventional way, to get my degree and establish my career. But, even at my age, I'm very open to everything you guys are talking about, and try and implement that and try and use social media, understand what the generations below me are doing, because they're living in a different world, and I'm still want to be part of it. Right. So I don't want to keep doing the old dog trick. I want to learn the new dog tricks.
But just to kind of go on that, but the way that your generation has established a lot of discipline and structure, that's the only way for us to like start creating on top of that.
I
right?
agree.
Without that foundation, we cannot create.
Nothing.
Right? It's like Picasso. Like Picasso has the painter. He understood the fundamentals so well that he started creating his own. Right. And that's where he started selling. So like I understand, like it's all about the structure in the beginning. After that, then you can put your little spices and everything that makes you.
Discipline and consistency, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't become a lawyer if you can't get through law school, and you can't get through school and you don't apply yourself. Like it all starts, like the base is discipline, right? And then you build on it, right? You continue building on it, right? But you don't, as a business owner, if you're not disciplined, like if I, from the time I was 15 years old, I saved my money. I didn't go out to bars. I didn't spend. I just saved my money. I invested. When other people my age were spending money, I was buying real estate, right? I was investing in my business. I was flipping boats. I was selling on eBay. Like I was hustling. And I'm still hustling. Like as David Corbin, how many transactions I do with his office every year? I'm still hustling,
Yeah.
and I'm still investing, and I'm still, doing my thing, and I'm still working. I'm hungrier than I ever been before in my life. And I don't know. I'm just, people ask me, David, like, when are you going to stop? I don't know. I'm still hungry, man.
I think as men, it's very it's a very like I don't know how in the Hispanic it's like a machismo, like we like progression. You know what I mean? Like we strive for it, right? And that's what keeps on going. Like the discipline obviously helps, the consistency obviously helps, but it's something like embedded in like certain men that they like progression. They like to see things move. They want better things for their family. They want, you know what I mean? All of a sudden they have this 3,000 square feet office. Now you're at 10,000 square foot. You know what I mean? It's just that hunger, that drive, like you said, right? But not everyone has it. Right? Some people are very comfortable where they are, and some people want to achieve and put on other people, and and start to, let's say, spread out their knowledge and their wealth, right?
Yeah.
So it's different, right?
It's a personality thing. You need some people need the next challenge, and you're a guy who's in the gym all the time, and I grew up, with a very athletic background, and sports was always a big part of my life. And you bench press, whatever you're bench pressing, 200 pounds, you want to get to 210, you want to get to 220. You just want the next thing. You never say, oh, I did, my goal was 200. I did it. I'm done for life. I'm never going to do it again. Right. That's not the personality trait, right? You want the next thing. You got to keep moving, looking for the next challenge.
Yeah, for sure. You got to be on top of the game.
Loco, just we're running a little bit low on time, but just before we let you go, give us like 2 minutes. If you were to sit down and have a conversation with a realtor that was struggling or really wanted to grow their presence or wanted to kind of put themselves out there a little bit more, what marketing advice would you give them?
As you know, I'm not a realtor. I'm not big into that. I do invest in a lot of properties. I do. That's one thing that I do, right? As for the marketing strategy for a realtor, don't be a cookie cutter, right? I see, like, I'm just giving you 100%. I'm just being super transparent, super
Please.
transparent. they almost everything kind of looks like a cookie cutter. It's just a different face. You know, the way that they approach the whole advertising, the whole everything, it just seems so factory robotic, right? Where everything kind of looks the same, right? It's a silhouette. It's just a cutout silhouette. You're doing the same thing and the same approach. And like, you know, like everyone says like car dealers, car salesmen are very pushy, right? Sometimes some realtors are very pushy as well, right? They're like, oh, you know, this and this, and this guy's going to close and we have another, all right? What I would suggest for marketing, be a little bit more open. Like, don't do the cookie cutter thing. Really talk, right? Really talk. Like, to a point, if a realtor came to me and say, hey, you know what, Loco, I don't think you're gonna like this house. Honestly, too much stuff. You know, the neighbor's weird. Backyard's kind of, you know what? Skip it, right? I'd be like, okay. You know, instead of trying to like sell it, right? That's a different approach of selling, right? So in the sense, like, market yourself as unique, as just stand out from the cookie cutters, right? Do something different, right? It does, like, obviously, like in your line of profession, it has worked, right? But you're dealing with, you know, like you if you want to be a 1%er in that industry, then you're gonna have to do something a little bit different, right? I just suggest, like, for marketing, obviously social media, videos is one key thing, but expressing a good personality in the video would be a key thing, right? To kind of exclude yourself from the cookie cutter kind of, you know, template that we constantly see as a consumer, as we constantly see.
That's great advice. And I don't know, I'm still not convinced I'm going to get a tattoo yet, but
You don't have to.
but tonight's a big night. I'm wearing my Leaf shirt tonight because big playoff game tonight. So if I'm going to get a tattoo, if the Leafs come back and win the series,
I'm
I
gonna
might
have a
be
lineup.
tempted. Instead of having T-shirts, maybe I just put it on permanently. So I'll have to come up with the right thing. But you certainly make it interesting, Evan.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys even giving me the time to come out here.
It was honestly our pleasure, and this is great. Thank you so much for your time, and yeah, this has been amazing. I'm sure we'll do some things together again in the future.
For sure, I'm actually really interested in what you guys have there for, especially you know, for your team, man. I'm more than open, you know, more than open.
The ideas are flowing, trust me.
Yeah, that's the worst part about being one of these guys, you know.
Being creative is like there's always something else on the horizon, right? But that's the beauty of life as well.
Yeah. Stay good, stay healthy,
Pleasure,
guys.
man.
Yeah, stay healthy, stay good. That's it. What else?
Awesome, man. We'll see you at the gym.
All right, guys.
Thanks for teaching us today, Evan.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot too, guys. All right, take it easy.
See
Stay
you,
safe,
man.
guys. Bye.